Hey guys, I've been reading from the Nag Hammadi library, the Hypostasis of the Archons, and it's kind of a shame. We're seeing how these texts aren't necessarily translated properly. They're translated through a Greek lens, but we could tell that these texts in their original form, whatever their original form was in Hebrew, as a lot of the Nag Hammadi texts verify. Okay. Anyway, I want to talk about this text because, I sympathize with people who say, deception, this is New Age deception and it's creeping into the church and all this kind of stuff. And believe me, I am not blindly reading everything, blindly believing. I am testing these things. With all my discernment, I am testing these things. And with a discerned eye. And this is a text on the surface. A lot of people will say blasphemy, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, it just gives us more information. I think it reveals to us, if we could have the patience and the discernment to understand what the text is really saying about the concept of Elohiym. Okay? Now, generally speaking, we like to think of as Elohiym in the Hebrew is plural, and we say, well, that's just the Trinity Godhead as one. And yeah, okay, generally it is. I think that's the Cliff Notes. Now, it's very interesting in the Strongs, when we look up the meaning of Elohiym, it means the gods and goddesses can be used for Elohiym and all that kind of stuff. Okay? But we understand it to be the Trinity as a whole. And thinking about this stuff, knowing this, what this text is revealing is that it's actually both. It's actually the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit working through the spiritual powers and principalities that be to do His will. And in a whole, it's called Elohiym. That's what the text teaches us. So when we have our brothers and sisters like Jonathan Kleck, he's teaching that, the Archons made us in His image. And I used to think, no, that's not true, but it is true. But generally our conception through our Bibles are just the Cliff Notes. Okay, so Elohiym is not necessarily the Trinity Godhead as one, as many of us hopefully like to think of it as. But it's really, this is what I believe this text has revealed to me in my understanding. And now we see how the Strong's Concordance in all of its definitions of Elohiym is absolutely correct. It's God's, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit's using what is evil, meaning it for good, to do His will all in one. It's the inconceivable, perfect thought of God. And that is what Elohiym generally means. So that's why Elohiym made us and all that kind of stuff. And when we hear these texts, well, the rulers made Adam. Well, the rulers made Adam through God's will, and the rulers are really the gods and goddesses, so to speak. I don't like the word goddesses, but I'm trying to used through the Father's will unknowingly. Like the enemy is here to kill, steal, and destroy, but at the same time, outside of His understanding, He's just used as a tool of refinement and correction and for our benefit in the overall end. But the enemy doesn't see that. But that's kind of, I think, that whole order of a greater goodness is what Elohiym kind of means. So that's what I'm realizing in this text. And we see how things could be mistranslated. Okay? It's really interesting. I don't want to get into specifics, but let me show you an example, okay? How things could be mistranslated. Now, here we are. This text is giving the account of Adam and Eve. Now, after Adam and Eve fell or sinned, it says the chief ruler came to them and rebuked them. Okay, well, is it possible that God manifested as the Son, Jesus, could be mistranslated as the chief ruler? Yeah, it absolutely can, because all the texts tell us that after Adam and Eve sinned, it was, what we considered as Jesus, a manifestation of the Son. He walked the earth and confronted them himself. And the Arminian Apocrypha tells when he walked the earth, everything just blooms in his path. Like, really amazing. It's a really cool picture to see that. So we could see how these things get mistranslated. The chief ruler, it could be mistranslated as a manifestation of the Son, as what we know to be true. Now here we have another severe mistranslation, is when Yeshua is that chief ruler, is making the decree of Genesis 3:15, and they're saying the arrogant ruler cursed them. Okay, well, is it possible that the arrogant ruler could be mistranslated as Yeshua, the manifestation of the Son in all his power and authority of the Father? Yeah, that's likely a mistranslation. You see? So it's a shame how things are mistranslated, and how this should really be retranslated through its proper Hebrew lens. And when we read this account of the creation and the creation of Adam, you see, I don't blow it off as, oh, this is a deception or blah, 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 because I see deep theologies or deep truths that I came to understand in my studies embedded in these texts. And so if these were false texts, these things generally would not be in here. Okay? Because the lie is not as strong as the truth. The truth will always come out. So I think things are just misunderstood, mistranslated, and interpreted through a Greek lens. Okay? So, I don't know. So that it's really amazing. And it's dealing with things that we don't necessarily understand. So, learning about things that we don't necessarily understand through a corrupt lens, just like our New Testament is given to us in a Greek lens. Well, why is our New Testament given to us through the Greek lens? Because the Messiah came to be a light to the Gentiles. Okay, so I want us to think about that. Okay, now I'm not saying everything in the Nag Hammadi library is valid, because I haven't read them all. But when to bring these texts up as truth and say, oh, well, they're corrupt and this and that, it's kind of the same situation as why Hebrews have a problem with the New Testament, not realizing it's just God's sovereign hand as a shadow and a type for Messiah being a light to the Gentiles. You understand what I'm saying? So this generally will be no different. It's the heart of God. It's the redeeming heart of God to bring who are not his people. Okay? So we know the New Testament is true, yet it's given to us through what could be considered a corrupt Greek lens. And I think these texts in the Nag Hammadi library, thus far, from my understanding, is no different. And so it's quite amazing reading this text. But yeah, a lot of people will say, oh, deception, blah, 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 without really discerning this stuff. And it's hard to discern. But if you're patient enough and understand deeper biblical concepts, I do see this stuff as true. And it gives us a way deeper spiritual insight than what our more carnal scriptures give us. I don't like the word carnal, but what more of our earthly scriptures give us. This is giving us insight into the spirit through the spiritual lens. These things can't really be transpired into words. It's really profound. So I don't know. This is my insight. I'm reading this text, and I'm blown away, and I'm learning, and I'm catching myself. Okay, to be, all right, God, am I being deceived? And no, learn, meditate, discern, think about it, and here we go. Yeah, this stuff is being mistranslated. And, it's quite astounding. So, what I got really most from the beginning, first page or two from this text is seeing how, I know the Strong's Concordance is corrupt. It's not perfect. I'm not putting the Strong's on a pedestal. Just bear with me. Just seeing how what we read of the definition of Elohiym from the Strong's, just as an example, is true in its whole. It's not God and then, it could be gods and goddesses. It's that whole pattern for, like what I described before. And that is the definition of Elohiym. So it's quite profound. It's quite profound. So I just wanted to share that, guys, these insights. It's hard to teach upon, but I'm learning as I go along. So, okay. Thanks for tuning in. God bless you.